My name is Lori Power. My company is MP Benefits, and I'm a group benefit consultant. I started the Shift program well over 100 episodes ago. Next week, I'm going to celebrate the 100 episodes. And
Wow.
I did it as a means to connect and grow and learn, because I am so curious, and everybody has a great story to tell. One of these relationships, of course, has been Natasha. She has become my go-to people and culture person, a guru who knows what it is to motivate their employees. And so she's putting on this boot camp, and I am fortunate to be taking it right now. And I really wanted her to come in and talk to us about why a boot camp, why now, and how does this work with her day job. So start with a little bit of a background on yourself, Natasha.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for calling me a guru. I feel super I'm blessed that you think I'm a guru.
I do.
Hi, all. I know quite a few of you. My name is Natasha. I am the Chief Culture Officer at Park Insurance in beautiful Burnaby, BC. We are a independently owned and operated insurance brokerage offering all forms of auto, personal, and commercial or business lines of insurance. And while I am a level 2 CABE designated insurance broker, I don't actually sell any insurance anymore. I have the pleasure of taking care of all of our employees across our 3 locations. And I am very grateful that I have the opportunity to take care of them really, really well, so that they in turn take care of thousands of clients for us really well. I highly believe in the Richard Branson quote about putting employees first, not clients first, and that if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your clients. And so that's just sort of been one of my guiding principles in leading, managing people for the past 20 years. And so I started the Culture Bootcamp. It was a little passion project of mine that I had been mulling over for the past, I would say, 12 to 18 months. And it really stemmed from, I network a lot in and outside of our industry with the Burnaby Board of Trade and to all of our industry associations. And because I have such a unique and progressive title, I get asked quite often, what the difference is between culture and HR manager. Even when I first started dating my partner, I know the first time he introduced me to his parents, he introduced me as an HR manager. And I was like, oh, that's not what I am, but thanks. And so I get asked quite often what it is I do in my role. And then I explain, as Chief Culture Officer, that all decisions within our company are made with the people in mind first and foremost, and that there's no decisions or conversations that don't go through sort of a culture filter first before deciding on an end result, and that they're all in line with our values. And so, and that, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And the next question is, well, how do you do that, right? How do you go about, creating such highly engaged people and having such high satisfaction? Sorry, I'm going to close my email here. I forgot to close that and it's beeping at me. Yeah, so, when I get asked quite often by people how it is what you do, it's hard in a networking situation within 5 to 10 minutes to be like, okay, here's my quick hits for success, right? So I sort of give them a Coles Notes versions, but it really then started stemming from, I felt like I had really valuable information, and what I have, sort of the cheesy term coined, the secret sauce and the ingredients to building an amazing workplace culture and having high employee engagement and buy-in from your employees. And I felt somewhat selfish keeping that information to myself, and I wanted to teach people. And in these networking events, people would be like, can you teach me? Can you tell me? Can you be my guru, right? And that's really where I decided to go down a limb, and I was going to create the Culture Bootcamp Workshop and introduce it to the world. And there we are.
really enjoying it. I know Amanda is my cohort in the room full of eager students to learn. What I really appreciated the first day is, and it stuck with me because it's easy to remember and it's easy to relate, is you had described the HR is basically your liaison between the employer and the employee. It's filtering the employer's message down to the employees, but they are an advocate for the employer. Whereas a people and culture person is the advocate for the employees back to the employer. And so
Yes.
first and foremost, you are taking that messaging that you're cultivating from the employees and taking it back to the employers so that you can have cohesion in your decision making data. And I really like the way that you had outlined that.
Thank you. Yeah, I really, and I say it quite often, right? I mean, I say I work for Park Insurance, but really I work for all the people that work for Park Insurance, right? And so, we've talked sometimes it's come up in conversation about clients. And I know someone said something to me like, well, I don't have clients, so why do I need to be a part of this training? And I say, well, I don't technically have clients either, but my clients are actually all 35 of you that work for us, right? And so I believe that all of my employees, I work for them, and without them, I would have no role really, right? So they're my first and foremost priority. And it's not to say that I don't also have Park's best interest in mind, right? I'm an entrepreneur at heart and very business minded, right? But I think that there needs to be that alignment and that cohesion, right? But I think traditionally, in the old school mentality, the balance has been weighed towards, employers and, policies. Whereas I think now that we are becoming more, progressive and holistic way of thinking that, we do need to take care of our employees, right? On a professional and personal level. And that will get us the results that we want instead of, cracking our whip at them, right? So much different generations than before, right?
Well, and it strikes me about our relationship over the last more than 2 years is how you have taken your position in that employee advocacy role. But first, you understand the employer, you understand those values that the employer is trying to muster out and perhaps doesn't have quite the right communication. How do we survey? How do we get that? How do we align that? And you tell us every week that everything you do with the employees also aligns with that corporate value structure. So I like that you said that you have to care first about that corporation in order to service and the back and forth between them on the employees.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be sort of, this cohesive collaboration and alignment. I do say alignment a lot, right? And I do this with my hands, right? We talked about this in week 2 about communication, right? Because to me, like, this is the symbol of alignment, right? It's like a coming together. It fits nicely, right? So absolutely.
How did you come about taking it into 6 modules? How did you manage to break that down? Because I really want to encourage people, you're going to offer it again in February, as I understand it,
Yeah.
and want people who may get this on the video side of things and people who are going to share this out, the 6 modules for understanding how that breakdown happens.
Right. So, I mean, I spent a lot of time obviously working on what I felt like were the core ingredients to the secret sauce. And I worked with an executive coach on making sure so I didn't have a biased opinion about the content and what the key ingredients were. And I wanted to make it a 6-part series. I mean, could we have done this in a full entire day? Absolutely. Maybe
fire hose, it's drinking from the fire hose though.
Exactly. Right. And so I've been in so many, leadership sessions before that have been full days or 2 days. And what happens is that you're away from your business for 2 days. You come back to hundreds of emails. You probably, as a leader or a people leader or business manager or general manager, come back to having, 3 to 5 fires to put out. So you come back, you get caught up on your emails, you do your actual work, you put out all these fires. By that point in time, days have gone by. So you've lost all your motivation when you left the class, that you're like, I'm motivated, I'm inspired, I'm going to go back to my business and I'm going to implement all of this. And it's all fresh in my mind, right? And so you go back and you're like, oh, what do these notes mean again? And you just sort of lose that motivation and the implementation process gets lost. So I wanted to make sure that each week I had enough content to speak to you for, 2 hours. But I wanted to make sure that you had enough, but not too much, so that you could walk away each week, take the tools and resources that we learned and talk about, implement them in your business. I give homework, whether you choose to do it or not, right? But, just some lovely suggestions about how you can implement these tools that we talked about in the 2 hours in your business. And then you can come back, you can learn a new tool and resource. And, and I found the 2 hours is the sweet spot, right? Like people, an hour is not enough, but more than 2 hours, especially virtually, you start to lose people, right? So we talk for usually about an hour, we take a 5-10 minute coffee, stretch your leg, water, bathroom break, and then we come back again for the last hour. And so that's why I built it out over the 6 weeks. And then do you want me to go over what the each week is, or a little bit?
I'd love to, because this is where I want to share it out with other people.
Yes.
So that they can take advantage of it next time.
Amazing. So week 1, we talk about what is culture, wants to know the definition of what we think culture is and what an amazing workplace culture can look like, or rather what it will feel like. And then we talk about all things employee engagement surveys, the who, what, where, whens, and whys and to-dos with those. And then we move on to, in week 2, communication. So talking about all the different types of communication styles, an internal relations plan, communication strategies, all the different types of communication you can have with your employees. Week 3, we talk about recognition and how to show recognition, appreciation, and reward your employees. And then we talk about development and all the different types of, development and training you can provide your employees.
I think we may have a bit of an unstable.
Or we are talking about best practice.
Is anybody else having? Yeah.
Yeah, Natasha's cutting in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now that's not good when we lose our guest speaker.
Keep saying sorry, guys.
No worries.
Am I back now?
You're not. You're back on spoken, but not on visual. That's okay. That happens. That's the new handshake. We'll fill in the blank. This is where we do elevator music.
I was going to say, last week we had our sales training offsite, and we had a business coach in, and he actually brought up the 72-hour rule of, if you don't implement something of what you learned, you might as well just put it in the pile. It's never, it's got, even if it's one little thing, to do something within 72 hours to make it stick.
It's that intentionality, isn't it, Melanie?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I say that I had to have that conversation with my youngest in high school, on the value, the teachers know nothing, right? And I'm like, well, if you go in with the intentionality of taking something away every day, you'll find that something. You have to be the hunter, you have to be the fisherman, you have to go looking for it. Natasha, are you back, or?
I am back. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Oh,
so sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Can you go back to week 3? So we started with the what is culture, and then we started with that communication and the survey. And I think there was a little bit on the week 3, but it was in and out. So if you can recap on week 3, that would be great.
Of course, yeah. And my apologies for the internet connection. I always go do the boot camp in the office instead of at home. So I don't rely on Wi-Fi. I tether right into the internet just to make sure that we don't have issues like this.
We suspend judgment here.
Yes, thank you. So week 3, we talk about recognition and development. So we go over why it's important to recognize your employee and what recognition from leadership could look like, what recognition from peer-to-peer should look like or could look like, and why that's important, and all the different types of examples of ways that you could appreciate and reward your employees. And then we move on to speaking about development and why investing in your employees is important, and the different types of training and education that you can provide them. That again, this all loops back into, building that employee engagement and building that buy-in with the employees. And then we move on to in week 4, which is what we're doing tomorrow. We're talking about human resources. And I know that I did say that human resources and culture is different, and it is different, but I will say they go very hand in hand. Exactly. Has to be that alignment and that cohesiveness and collaboration there. And so we're just going to talk about some best practices for human resources that support an amazing workplace culture, really revolving around the human resources component of a lot to do heavy weighted in recruiting, right? And hiring for fit, and why that's important to set people up for success in your business. Week 5, we talk about all the fun stuff. So anything and everything to do with having fun at work, why having fun at work is important, why that can increase your productivity, lower your employee stress levels. And we talk about all the different types of events that you could possibly have, whether those be big or small, whether they cost $0 or a bunch of money. We also have my culture guru on for a live Q&A, and he's going to be answering some questions for us about what it takes to make an amazing workplace culture fun and how to have fun at work. And then the last week, we are going to do a full recap. And so I wanted to make sure that we had time to go back to week 1 and talk about, okay, engagement surveys. Do you have questions? How can I help set you out for success on this path of implementation? And I did hear someone, I think it was Melanie, when I was looping back in, talking about having to, implement within 72 hours, right? And if you hadn't had that opportunity in your business yet to implement it, that now is the time, right? What other tools and resources can I provide you? So we will go through that. We'll answer any questions. We will do some goal setting, because I think that's really important, right? I want you guys to get value from this course. I want you to be able to measure where you are now, or where you believe you are now with your culture, and then implement the ingredients to the secret sauce. And then let's follow up in a year and see where your culture is at. And then I'm going to make sure I provide you guys with a bunch of resources before I set you off into the wild. And then I'm going to ask that you keep me updated with how things are going.
I like that. As most people know, I'm a very small organization. So, it's not hard to keep those communications going when you're a team of 3 or 4.
Yes.
But like I say, you go into something with intentionality. So for me, when I went in, I was, how can I utilize this information to not only engage with my clients, but to engage my clients' employees? Be that somebody who is facilitating perhaps a new idea where they may not have a people and cultures person, but to share out those messages. And just as a, for instance, on your homework made me think about, how am I communicating out? Is it strategic? Does it have, what is that purpose? And how will I measure that return? And so how we apply that knowledge, I think, is it does span across boundaries. And the other item I wanted to mention from last week's conversation, and I shared this with Lisa this morning, was you talked last week about the length of time between when an employee actually was last recognized and how that recognition really needs to be increased. One of the items in a report that I read this morning was executives think that they are recognizing. There was like a 97 percentile that executives and leadership teams say they are recognizing employees across the board, compared to 43% of employees who felt that they were recognized.
Yeah.
And the number dropped significantly if it was a remote or they're trying to foster a remote workforce.
Yeah.
There's
and I think what you're talking about, that stat said that employees reported that it had been 50 days since they last had felt recognized. And so that's a very long amount of time, right? We talk a lot about in the first week about the different types of employee engagement surveys that you can have. And one of the recommendations I have is you can do a custom one, or you can rely on the Gallup survey, which is 12 questions that are scientifically based, that if you have high scores on this, that you will have high employee engagement. And one of them is about, I have received recognition within the past 7 days. So that is their scientifically proven benchmark of how often you need to be recognized within your organization to have that much of a high employee engagement and buy-in, right? And to speak to what you said, Lori, that just, that stat that you said about what managers think and what employees think and how there's that massive disconnect. That is why I'm such a firm believer and advocate of do the employee engagement surveys. And that's our number one ingredient, right? And that's where you need to start. Like, how can you know if you don't ask them, right? And I keep referring back to it in a lot, right? And that's why it starts with that, because we talk about in communication, like, when, this week we're going to talk about, in job postings, putting in there the information about what employees are looking for. Well, do you know what your employees are looking for? Like, do you just think that you know what your employees are looking for, or have you asked them, right? What do they want to get out of their employment? See, obviously there's stats that show, the majority of people want this, right? But within your industry, within your organization, with your own little bubble, you really should know that from employees, right? And so I'm a huge believer in just asking.
Well, and ask often, have a strategy, track it, measure it, for sure. The disconnect always gets me. Like, I love looking at these disconnects. It's almost like watching an accident, right?
Yes,
like
it is.
You're too close to the edge. I think you're gonna fall off, and they fall off. And there's a part of me that goes, I saw that coming. But there is within that report too, they talked about the remote workers and why I know people who are in these organizations where the executive management team has said, it's important for you to come back to the office so that we can foster internal relationships. Mm-hmm. Your employees aren't seeing that because you didn't do it before. Why are you doing it now? I thought my role here was to be productive. And another one I saw that just aligns really well with what you're talking about is in that hiring mode. What does a prospective employee hear when somebody says, where do you want to go in your career? And how the employee is, how are you going to help me go and grow and be the productivity person within your organization?
Yeah. And that's something that we talk about in week 3, right? In the development portion of it, right? I say, who likes performance reviews? Put up your hand. And no one puts up their hand because no one likes them. No one likes being a part of them, and no one likes giving them, right? And so I firmly believe that, restructuring it to be performance and development plans where you can have organic conversations with your employees about where they are and how they're doing and where they're going, and having a goal setting section on there that's collaborative, where, the employee has some ownership of where they're going, but then their manager also has a component of mentoring and coaching them and helping them get there, and then making it more frequent than once a year, which is what happens with most performance reviews, right? Cool, I've talked to you now, and then I talk to you again in another 364 days, and let's hope that I do okay, like, right? So yeah.
I like what you say there, Jane, calling it guidance versus feedback. Amanda, if it's okay with you, I'd love to call on you to get a bit of a testimonial on your takeaways for the last couple of weeks.
Sure. A lot of the information I really appreciate, and it's really applicable for organizations regardless of the size. I find in my role, we are a bit farther. So there is some stuff that I'm still able to take away from this course, even though I am part of a bigger organization. So just for context, we have over 400 employees across Canada, really. But there's things to really think about are we actually living to the communication plan? For example, can I create a communication plan for myself versus just having one as an organization? So that's just one. And I do like the format of it. So the 2 hours weekly, it's a good amount of time. And then Natasha's energy is just very like addicting, if I can say that. Like,
yeah. Thank you,
Amanda.
Thank you. Yeah, it's contagious. That's what I always say. My energy is somewhat contagious, right? So
and the boot camp has value, right? There is an immediate return on investment if we do, like Melanie says, if you make a plan to implement within 72 hours. I'm going to steal that. I've never heard that one before, but it totally makes sense. Like if you're not going to, I remember years ago going to sessions and, you gather all the paperwork, or you come home with the bag from the conference, and then it sits in the corner and it gathers dust. And then you look at it a year later and go, yeah, what was that?
Yeah, exactly. I know that it does happen. I know that, I went to UBC Sauder School of Business in March 2020 and did like a 3-day intense leadership program. And then it was like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And on Friday, all hell broke loose with the pandemic. And we deployed everyone to work from home. And you know what? I literally just pulled out all those books the other day, Lori. That's funny that you said that. And they're covered in dust. And I was like, well, there's a couple grand wasted, and just tossed them. I threw them in the recycling bin. Yeah.
It's if you don't use it, you lose it. So we're coming to the top of the hour. And I said I was going to mention this in that you had reminded me the value of this book. And it was so interesting that I could say, I have that book. Tell me what you like about it.
I think what I love about it is that even though it's an older book, it is still very relatable to today. It has a ton of really, creative and unique ideas about how you can reward your employees. And maybe if some of them are a little bit older, I think it's easy when you read them to be able to reimagine them in current days. And I love that a lot of it is very cost effective. And I think that's something that I encounter a lot with people that I network with and I talk to about culture. They say, wow, like that'd be so great, but like we can't afford a culture person. And I say, well, here's what you could do on your own. Or they say, wow, I'd really love to do that, but I can't spend a lot of money on my employees, right? And so there's a lot of ideas in there where things don't have to cost a lot of money, and they can have such a huge return on investment for you and just be so valuable for employees. A lot of this stuff just can cost very little or nothing at all and can go a really long way for you. So that's what I really love about that book. So I highly recommend, if you do need to figure, if you do need ideas about how to recognize, reward, appreciate your employees, or peer-to-peer recognition, which is also covered in there, pick up the book and read through it. Just flip through it. I really feel like it's going to be motivational and inspiring and get those creative juices flowing.
Just it's amazing that you said that. So I just flipped it open, and on page 198, and to your point, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. If somebody has created an initiative, give them the latitude for a special assignment to do it.
Right?
Yeah. What you're giving there is even if you only say, you know what, if you take 15 minutes a day for the next week, could you put something together for me? You're covering off so many bases there. You're covering off recognizing that the employee has come to you with an initiative. You're recognizing that the initiative has value enough that you're saying, you know what, I haven't thought about that before. Why don't you take 15 minutes out of your day, my dime, and come up with something that might be a workable strategy. And who knows, it might not go anywhere, or it might be the next best thing in your organization.
Agreed. Empowerment at its best, I think, right?
Yeah. So it is one of those books that is so fun just to flip through and just flip the page.
Yeah. And I've given a book recommendation every week, right? Just something relatable that I think that ties in, because I want to be able to give you, again, lots of resources and tools, and just like the homework, take what you will from it, right? So I encourage you to do it, but it's not like you're getting graded at the end or anything. So yeah. Well, and I appreciate you having me on, Lori. I appreciate you being a part of it. You are very interactive in the sessions, which I appreciate. Thank you, Amanda, for the testimonial. She works for a very large organization, and they do a lot of the stuff that I'm already teaching about, but I'm happy to hear that she still finds value in it. I am a huge believer in continuous learning and studying, and I feel like even if you already feel like you have a really great culture, this is a great resource for you, workshop to be a part of. I think that by continuing to learn, you're showing you're committed to working hard, bettering yourself, studying, and being relevant. And if we're asking our employees to have buy-in to us, we need to have buy-in to them. And that I hope that being a part of this workshop and having other people involved in it being interactive, you can learn even just a couple key valuable points that you could take away that could really be impactful and have a positive impact on your organization. So there you go. So follow me on LinkedIn if you're not already, and there'll be some information in the next couple months about dates when we will be doing this again in late January, early February, and we'll end right before sort of spring break.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in. Thanks to everybody who's come in today. Next week, we are celebrating 100 episodes, and I hope to see everybody back. What I want to hear is your favorite shift moments. Like what made you come back? So I hope to see everybody here and more next week. And we're just going to, just have a conversation as always.
Yeah.